Hello, good evening, and welcome to the call. I am going to talk a little bit tonight about money management and what I find a fair way to approach money with kids. You know, Money is a fairly nuanced topic. And I want to start by establishing the way things are with money. First of all, it's really important to acknowledge that children, particularly small children, don't have any way to get money other than from you. And money in today's society, in a capitalistic society, a capitalistic culture, money is power. And money is one of the higher governing powers that it's one of the higher powers that we have to manage on a day to day. Now, um, on top of money being a huge piece of power structures in our society, um, there's a lot of really harmful ideas around money, particularly regarding children. So, you know, we come from a culture that very much believed that children were not capable of understanding the burden of money. And I want to say that if we're coming from a certain paradigm, I would agree. The burden of money is a little bit too heavy for children. However, you know, when we're talking about money from a place of like go, 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 and if we fall short on this, then the entire world is going to fall to pieces. And if I don't make it to work today, like we're all going to be living under a bridge type of a mentality, then yeah, that is inappropriate for children. And it's far too scary for children. And it doesn't empower children around money and learning how to not only make money, which, as I already mentioned, that comes later in life. We have laws that make a child's only access to money through you and how you decide to manage money in your family. So, you know, because of that, we hold all the power in this dynamic. And as you know, if you've been working with me or following any of my work, I talk a lot about how in the parent child dynamic, we hold all the power. And the financial aspect is definitely a huge piece of all of that. So, um, all that said, establishing you know, um, establishing kind of a baseline for mainstream beliefs around money and the ways that mainstream manages money, I'd like to share a little bit my perspective and my insights about money. I want to establish that, I have raised my children in a pretty low income household, and we don't have access to a lot of extras. Um, And all that said, I really, really want to empower my children around money. I don't want my children to experience a lot of the same struggles and hardships that I experienced around finances. And as part of that, I really like to look at money. First of all, I like to look at money as something that belongs to a family. It's part of what helps the family get by, right? And I really don't like to look at money as if it is the possession of only the breadwinner in a family, because as we know, that's pretty unfair and it creates a lot of imbalances, and it is oppressive within power structures when we're withholding or holding on to or taking ownership of a family resource that we all need to get by in the world. And particularly a resource that our children don't have access to. A lot of older school ideas, which we're unpacking and working with to deal with our generational trauma, are incredibly entitled. Ideas like we deserve like the best part of the meal because we paid the money and we go to work. Does feeling like we deserve the best seat in the house because we paid the money and we go to work. And like all of these ideas around us being deserving or more deserving because we're bringing in this resource. Because really, a family is could be a balanced infrastructure where we all work together and we share with each other mutual respect. And um, when we're looking at money from a point of view as, like I'm saying, it's a resource. Money's a resource that helps us to maintain the things in our lives that are important to get by in today's society. It helps us to maintain a home. It helps us to maintain the power and all, like power is an electricity, right? It helps us to maintain all of the things that it takes to run a home. And like I said, it's a resource. And um, as adults, we learn about budgeting money and figuring out, like, you know, beyond our bills, what else can we afford? And, how much, like, beyond our bills and our basic needs, how much comfort or entertainment or all of these, like, details that we can or can't afford. That's how we write a budget, right? And we're not really looking at money that way with children. We kind of come from this, like, and again, when I'm talking, like, I like to talk about that mainstream mindset and the places where we might be coming from based on the ways that we might have been raised and the ideas that might have been put in our head. And this isn't to say that, like, all of us are coming from these perspectives or that you're bad or wrong for being in this mind space, right? Just simply to, like, put it out there that as a whole, or, like, from the sociological big picture of groups of people, this is how a majority of people are managing this thing, right? And so um, when we're coming from this mainstream paradigm of I'm providing everything for you, and I'm entitled to XYZ because I'm providing and all of these other things, and we're not talking to our kids about money, we're not talking to our kids about how we budget or any of this other stuff, then um, we're creating a lot of hardships around money. And so the way that I like to manage money with my kiddos is I like to share with them about money. I like to share with them about the cost of living. Um, we can very much share with our children, like, what it looks like, what we have coming in and what we have going out, and what our budget looks like, how we take care of things, like we take care of all of our bills and all of our necessities like food and all of that stuff first, and then we have a certain surplus hopefully, if that's, life provides, hopefully you have a certain surplus that can be used for savings or it can be used for entertainment, whatever the budget provides for. And when we're working within this parameter of looking at money like I said, like it's a resource and like it's something that we divvy up, which it is, right? That's how we do it. We divvy it up. We figure out what goes where, and then we work off of that to try and make our ends meet. And so when we're looking at it from this perspective, not only do we get the opportunity to look in at money from a slightly healthier perspective, we get to look in and figure out like different ways to manage it that we really weren't taught from those old perspectives of children can't like manage the adult responsibility of money. Um, we get the opportunity to really learn those skills for ourselves and to pass those skills on to our children. Now, I specifically want to address there was a post in GPU. Let me go ahead and pull it up real quick. Um, so I had wanted to speak on the topic of money this evening because of this post from an anonymous member. It says, my 10-year-old daughter is asking me to buy a Stanley Cup. I don't know what all the hype is about, but I feel it's overpriced. How do you handle these kinds of wishes, especially for expensive stuff? My daughter loves shopping and always wants to buy things, even without thinking if she really needs it. I understand it's normal to be influenced by friends, etc. But where to draw the line? I wanted to understand the value of things and not fall for instant gratification. For now, I suggested her to do more chores and earn money. When she has 50% of the money, we can buy it. Does this sound like a good plan? So, anonymous member, I really do want to address your question directly. Um, I talked a little bit first about kind of how I feel about like the structures around money and the ideas that we have around money. And I want to point out again, like, it's really great that you can offer more chores and offer an opportunity to earn money. Um, you know, at the same time, I'd like to see that be more indicative of real life and where we are as a society today. Um, I don't think it's a particularly fair. Like, I'm not sure exactly how much a Stanley Cup costs. I probably should have looked that up before we started talking. However, I'm gonna guess that a Stanley Cup probably couldn't be much more than 25 or $30. Um, One thing I would say about a Stanley Cup is that a Stanley Cup is a very quality, high made thing, quality made product that is made out of materials. Generally speaking, it's like stainless steel. I remember being a kid, and my dad, Stanley, like, if you wanted to please my dad, you would have bought him a Stanley Cup for Christmas, for sure, or his birthday, or just any time to get that smile from him. And, he hung on to that thing. So, you know, and not to like boost up the company or the product that they offer, just to offer this perspective that I could actually see outside influence and anything else why such a cup that keeps your product either really cold or really hot, depending on what you're going for like the longest period of time, would actually be something that somebody would be into. All that said, I actually don't think that part matters as much. What I do think matters as far as this question goes is A, I get that you feel that the product itself is overpriced. But A, is it within your finances to be able to buy this cup? And if you're able to buy this cup, our feelings about the cost or the price of the cup aren't really as important as whether or not we're actually able to do the thing and whether or not it kind of busts our budget in a certain way. Um, and that would be much more how I would talk to my children about it than like, like, well, you have to earn a certain amount of money in order to get this cup, particularly when, like I said, we're kind of like we're kind of like the ones behind that, right? We're like running this show when so it's actually us if we're the one offering more chores and an opportunity to make money. It's also us standing in the way of what they are asking for and what they need. So, I wouldn't say that you are required to buy the cup simply because she wants the cup. I would definitely, mention that it depends so much on your budget. And if it's not within your budget to buy this cup like right away, then that would seem like, that would be realistic. We could talk about different ways that as a family we could save up for the cup. We could find different ways to, be honoring without making something of a unrealistic, not quite age of developmentally appropriate request of our child. Now, you know, another thing that I would mention is that when we're offering a child labor in order to earn money to get the thing that they want, which I'm not completely aligned against. Like, there's times when that feels like it's appropriate. But here's the thing is that I'd really like to see the amount of money that we were paying that child to do that labor would be more indicative of real life and a real life job. So if you were going to offer your child some labor in order to make some money for something that they wanted, I'd really want to make sure that that wage was actually a little bit more indicative of what an adult would make for doing said labor. And I know that children are still learning, and watching all these young people struggle to get by and struggling to work up these ladders and all of that, I gotta say that underpaying children and young people for labor and the jobs that they do is actually quite damaging. Um, and it's not setting them up for a healthy understanding of what things are really like when we get out there in the world and we begin to do these things. In fact, it's setting them up to accept less than their worth, which, as so many of us are struggling with our sense of self worth and how we're like able to get by, I really find that leaning into underpaying children for labor is one of the ways that we send the message that they're not valuable. And I'm not suggesting, actually, you don't say in your post that that you would be underpaying her for labor. Um, the way that I read that is where it says I suggested she do more chores to earn money, and when she has half of the money, we can buy it. Now, I'm guessing a Stanley Cup is probably at the tops only $30. So I'm thinking like the most labor we could get out of somebody in a fair premise, indicative of real life, would be 1 hour of labor to get half of the money. And I'd really want to see that considered before we went into like setting them up to, do a whole bunch more jobs and like take on all of this other responsibility around the house. Um, like actually timing it and thinking about it like it's something that, this is the wage that you'll be making for this job. And we already know that people can't get by in society on, at least in America, on less than $15 an hour. Like it's this big controversial topic going on throughout our country right now. And I think it's really important that we meet that criteria with our children so that we are sending them a positive message about their worth, and so that they're not accepting less than their worth, particularly not in the workplace when they grow up and they get out there in the world and they start having to manage money for themselves. And, if you just don't make enough money, then money management is kind of a silly premise. Like, if you're not making enough, it's really hard to manage it. So, starting from an empowered platform can be a really helpful way to help our children to lean into a more positive, healthy relationship with work and with money. So, I'm not, like I said, I'm not fully aligned against the idea that maybe she do a little bit of work to earn the money for the cup. Um, Again, I kind of feel that personally, I wouldn't. I don't really lean into how I feel about an item if I feel it's overpriced, or, I feel like maybe they want it because their friends have it or things like that. I really just like to lean back on my own budget and what I'm able to afford and achieve and what I'm able to offer, because that feels a lot more organic to me, and it feels like it's more honoring of somebody who doesn't have the abilities and the powers to step outside of the norms or step outside of their position in life and go take care of their needs for themselves. And as parents, I do feel we have that responsibility to take care of our children's needs, and beyond their needs, like their basic needs, like food and clothing and shelter, um, their desires and some of the things that they want are also valid, just like our desires and some of the things that we want are also valid. And again, in a budget and making a plan, sometimes that takes time. Sometimes, we want something and we legitimately can't afford it. So, what do? We go back to the drawing board, we look at our budget, we figure out where we can make some savings or shave off a little bit of extra cost, and we decide how much time it's going to take us within our budget to get to this big thing that we find important, that we want. And so, if we can treat our children with that same respect around money, I think it's healthy, it's helpful, and it really sets our kids up to be more empowered instead of completely disempowered around something that they just don't have a whole lot of control in. So, hopefully, you find this helpful, and hopefully, you'll figure out a way to implement what feels good to you, and sort out everything that I'm saying and find out what is in alignment with your values and how you'd like to manage all of this, so that you and your family are really comfortable around the decisions that you make. But thank you for your question, anonymous member, and I hope that you find this audio useful. So I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording and get to the sharing portion of this call. Thank you all for being here tonight.